Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to do your own compost. Now, why you want to do your own compost? Well, first of all, it's free and you can make quite a bit of it. You don't have to pay a dime. Number two, you don't know what you get in the stores when you're going to go buy some dry stuff in a bag. So the best thing to do is to make your own. You would think, well, it's a complicated thing and it would take a long time. Not really. It's very simple. It will take 18 days from the beginning to the end if you do it right. I would say maximum 30 days even if you don't, even if you skip some steps. What do you need in this compost? This type of compost I'm going to show you how to do is called Berkeley style. Now, Berkeley style is a hot form of compost. It is important to make it hot because this way you speed up the process of decomposition. So let's start with the ingredients that you need. You're going to need 3 main ingredients and an optional thing. The main ingredients are basically you're going to need some dry leaves or wood chips, something that's a carbon nature. Now, I went around the house and I got me some dry leaves, and hey, my pine trees throw me some bonus pollen, which, hey, why not? Nature gives you, use it. And there is something that also I want to show you that's also free. You don't have to work for it. These bags right here. These are free stuff from the side of the roads where people pick up their leaves around the yard and they pay money for the bags and they put them right in here for you. Beautiful material you can use. So I already have some ready, so I'm going to put this bag back and I'm going to use it next time. Nice. Just take around in the neighborhood and you're going to find a bunch of these on Saturday night. That's when people are cleaning up their yards. So that's just the tip. So that's your brown material. Leaves or wood chips. Now if you was going to use the wood chips, I recommend that you use some older wood chips or smaller chopped. So, and that's pretty tough to get if you don't have your own chopper. You have to rely on some arbor people around that can drop you some. That's also fine, but they will drop you a giant load. I always use it. However, dry leaves are fine. That's the easiest thing to do. Number 2 ingredient is the grass, fresh green grass. And my grass, the one that I I mowed alone, I already mixed it up in here and left it here for a while because I did not have the time to mix up with the other ingredients. However, let's say you don't have that kind of mower that collects the grass clippings. Well, I'm sure you have some weeds around the house or in the ditch. That's what I did, just to show you. I just grabbed some, you don't have to be a whole bunch, but the more you have, the better it is because it's going to get hotter. This is your source of nitrogen, people. So, again, how much it is? I would say as much as you can put your hands on. The more you have, the hotter it gets, which is good. Now, I only have a handful here because my grass clippings are already mixed up in there and composted, so I'm going to do whatever I have. So that was number 2. Grass clippings, very important. Now, you will wonder why you have to. That's pretty much what's going to start your fire, the heat. Plus, everything that's green, even if you have like leaves, green leaves from the tree, whenever you break it, it's going to release some microorganisms that's related to the chlorophyll in the grass. And that is an explosion of a life that's going to happen in your compost. This is very important. Do not skip that step. Do not skip the grass clippings. Very important step. Number 3 ingredient, which is probably the hardest to get around, well, depends on where you live, is manure, animal manure. Now, this manure that I have here, I got it for free from a horse farm. Now, if you have a horse farm around, or a little farm, you can get any kind of manure. The horse manure is the lowest in nitrogen, so it's going to be, it won't have as many nutrition as chicken manure, for example. Chicken manure, you don't have to use as much. Horse manure, because it's lower in all these nutrition and lower in nitrogen, you're going to have to use a little bit more. If you can get free around, it's perfect. So that's what I'm keeping in those buckets in the back. Always have some handful of horse manure on hand in case that I want to make more compost or I want to do something else with it. So horse manure also, if you just put it on if you want to make a instant garden, it will take probably about a month and you can plant straight in it. It's very low, it's not going to kill your plants after about a month if it's fresh. If it's already composted, you can plant any time in it. So these were the main 3 ingredients, and I said there is a bonus, which you don't have to put it if you don't have it, but it will make everything go much faster, which is called an activator. My activator today is this handful of leaves, which is called, is from a plant called comfrey. Now, if you're lucky enough to have comfrey around and put some hands on it, it's perfect. If not, it's fine, don't worry about it. You do not have to use comfrey. Maybe later on you might want to plant some. It is beautiful, it grows easy, and is a very hardy plant. Bunch of nutrients, nutrition wise, and also minerals, full of minerals. Has a long taproot that goes and sucks up all those minerals from the ground. Now, if you don't have comfrey, you can use like a dead fish, like a gallon size dead fish guts. Other people say you can use any roadkill, let's say, but I wouldn't go that far. So if you have, I'm sure you have a fisherman around the house or maybe in the neighborhood, they will be glad to give you the remains of the fish. You can use that to start your compost. That's optional. You can skip that altogether. Now, what we're going to do with these 3 ingredients and that activator, we're going to layer it up. And when we're going to layer it up, we're going to always start with the dry leaves, which is the carbon content, and then we're going to start layering up with everything. Now, this activator, you want to put it right in the center of the pyramid that you're going to make. We're going to make like a pie, a big pyramid. And it has to be pretty big, because if it's not large enough, it won't start to compost. Alright, so here we go. This is where I started. This is some new leaves that I got from the front yard, so it doesn't really matter. I'm going to start with this one and lay it up. And yes, very important, I have a water hose with me handy. That's another thing that you're going to have, because if it's not moist enough, the microorganism cannot live. So you don't want to drench it in water, but you do want to keep it moist enough to the point where if you squeeze it really hard, it's going to drop a little bit. That's all. That's all the moisture you want to have in here. So I'm going to start with these. Again, I already have had my green grass clippings composted in this one, so mine might take a little bit longer to start because I did not have the time that day to make the full compost, but that's okay. That's the good part about composting. It's forgivable. You forget something or if something goes wrong, you just add another one. If it doesn't heat enough, add more grass clippings. If it's too hot, you can add more dry leaves, or if it smells too bad. But for 4 days, you're gonna leave it alone anyway. And I'm gonna go through that process in a minute. So I'm gonna start with the base of leaves. Spread it such a way so you can make the base of the pyramid. Then you're gonna put a little bit of manure on the top. Spread it like that. Then you're gonna continue with the leaves. Now, if I see at a certain point it kind of gets dry, like at this point, I might want to water it just a little bit, not too much. Mine looks like, since it's been raining in the past, yesterday was raining really hard, I probably won't have to add too much water. However, I will, just to make sure. Not much, just a little bit. just to have enough moisture and start to get started. Okay, I have some more leaves. I'm going to add these. Put a handful of grass clippings, fresh grass clippings. It is important to have fresh grass clippings because that's where everything will start. And if you take like a handful of already made compost, look in a microscope, you will be blown away how much life is in there. And we only know about 2% of that life. Science only got to about 2%. Everything else we don't know. All we know is it's extremely beneficial for plants, and the plants not only need the nutrients from the compost, also need the life to be able to take the nutrients. And not only that, this compost will produce bacteria, beneficial bacteria for the plants, it also is going to produce fungi, and it's going to live in a perfect harmony one with the other. So you notice a little bit of work to layer them up. It's kind of fun after a while, especially when you see all these transforming under your eyes whenever you wait for a few days. It is absolutely amazing, the transformation that it takes place. When I said 18 days, that is the truth. If you do it right, and if your ingredients are good. So I keep layering this, and if you notice, these are just dry leaves and some grass clippings that I had. I put them aside for when I start the compost, and it's already decomposing. You can't even tell it was, you know, they were a different color. Alright, we're gonna have some water. Feels like it needs a little bit more water. I think it's the first time when I put so much pollen in it. I'm curious to see what's going to happen. It's only a good thing can happen. The pollen will help. And it's very small. And again, the smaller the chunks are, the more surface area you have for the compost, which is going to decompose better and faster. If you have big chunks of stuff, it will take a little bit longer, but you know, it will decompose either way. The best thing again is to have smaller particles of anything. That's why, you know, if you can chop off the grass with the lawnmower is the best. If you can do this with the leaves, these leaves were not chopped up and they're fine. They're still going to take, this one probably going to take a little bit longer than 18 days. Still, very good compost. I've been using these for years. Well, actually, about a year. I never run out of compost. If you have a garden, this is the number one thing you have to do. Make your own compost. Your plants need food, and as you eat, your plants have to eat. This is food for your plants. Now, where did I learn this? I've been watching many videos online, and I came across this guy called Jeff Lawton. And Mr. Jeff is a permaculture guru. He's the guy who studied and teaches permaculture styles. You can look up what permaculture is. He has wonderful tips on how to garden and start a garden that takes care of itself, so you don't have to work too hard. Of course, majority of the plants that he's talking about perennials and trees. So he's teaching people how to start a homestead that would feed your family for a very long time without much work. So this is part of the, I would say, number one thing that you need to do in order to start a garden of any kind. It doesn't matter if it's an annual garden, if you have just some tomatoes and peppers, or if you want to feed your trees, or you want to plant some more perennials. So at this point I'm going to take some of the comfrey leaves, which is my activator if you remember. I'm going to break them as much as I can. I put them right in the, I would say in the center of this part will become bigger and bigger. I'm going to get a little bit more grass with my activator. Now you notice I'm kind of sloppy and it really doesn't matter. The smaller these particles are, the better it is, but if, instead of fighting it, leave it alone, it's going to break down. I'm going to grab all my comfrey. And this is the center of my compost where it's going to start to spread like fire everywhere else. It's pretty cool. More and probably some more water soon. It takes a little bit longer when you start first, maybe 30 minutes or so, but whenever you need to turn it, and I will explain you what you do after this step, it will only take you about 20 minutes every time. And I'm sure you can spare 20 minutes of your time about 3 times a week for your garden. So I'm going to add some water. And continue with the layering. It's more like a lasagna. Compost, you add a layer, you add another one. Also, I want to tell you about something interesting that I learned. It's called biochar. Now, biochar was actually charcoal loaded with compost. So because I want to load my charcoal with compost, I'm going to take what is charcoal, whatever left over in your fire pit you have that's not burned completely, that's charcoal. And I already had something that's in powder format. It's going to be a little bit messy. If you might want to hit pause, I need to get something to get the charcoal. Just pause it. Okay, I'm done. Ready? Okay, so I got me a scoop. Try to get some of this charcoal that's powder. Now you won't have this in powder format, and I don't recommend use necessary powder. This is what I have, and that's what I'm gonna use. So charcoal, you can get like regular charcoal from your fire pit or natural charcoal from the store. Make sure they're not briquettes. Supposed to be only hardwood charcoal. Don't have to be hardwood, but has to be charcoal with no chemicals added. And you can chop it up in pieces as small as you want. The pieces can be as big as this. It's fine. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna be careful not to breathe this. You do not want to breathe this small powder. Okay, I'm good. I might add some later. Okay. And what the charcoal has an extremely large surface area, and that's like a house for the micro life that's in the compost, and the life will find location there, will stay there for a long time, so it will help your garden to be fed from that charcoal for a very long time. It's called biochar. People using this term. Have to add some water soon. Need some water, then I'm gonna add the rest of that manure and top it up with leaves, and we can cover it up with a tarp, weatherproof tarp, something that does not allow water to penetrate, because we do not want this to be soaked if it rains, and we want this to be protected. I'm gonna use this one rather because this is small, or you can use a shovel as well, smaller particles. There you go. It's really not a complicated thing to do. I might layer it one more time with something else. Maybe put some grass. If you notice, I did not use that much, but a little bit goes a long way with grass clippings and weeds. There you go. I noticed this pitchfork, it has smaller, narrower teeth together, and it's used for wood chips and for smaller particles like the manure. That's why it's called a manure pitchfork. The other one you can use for larger things like grass, dry leaves. So you really don't have to have two, but if you do, it's pretty good. Gardening is like in any other kind of job. You need tools, and in time you're going to learn what kind of tools are suitable for one job or another. Tools are important. I like to have tools. You can get by with probably one pitchfork and one shovel, but I like to have just about all the tools that I need for my garden. I'm trying to put all this manure now, then I'm going to cover with the last layer of carbon, which is the dry leaves, and that will be, I'm going to water it again. I'm going to rake all this up. I don't want nothing left out. And the compost pile is almost done. You notice it has to be pretty tall. 1 cubic meter is the ideal size. It's like a cubic yard, just about. And if you use the ingredients I told you, it's pretty much foolproof. if this should work every single time. So far it never failed for me, and I am no expert in any way or mean. I just used what I had around the house and worked every time. And like I said, everything is free if you can find a source for your manure. Now, you're gonna say, what if I don't have manure? What I'm gonna do? Well, you can eventually bypass that, and which is fine. Use household leftovers from your kitchen. Make sure you do not put there citrus. Citrus is not very easy to be composted. Citrus peels, avoid that, and put as many food scraps that you can find, and you can probably get by without manure. So I'm going to make these as tight as I can to the base, as tall as possible that it can take. I see here the garden worm, which is wonderful for this, but I'm going to put this in a garden. I don't want him to stay here too long. Okay, I'm going to tie this in. Some larger pieces of stuff, like I see here some horse manure in bulk, you just kind of break it if you can. It will compost anyway, but the smaller the better. Okay, time to water it and cover it up, and then we'll talk about what we can do next. All right, looks pretty good. Now, water time. Again, don't drench it, just lightly moisture it. And you will water it again whenever you need to flip it and turn it over. So at this point I'm ready to put the tarp on. And the tarp that you want to use has to be weatherproof. I mean something that the water does not penetrate. Why? Because you don't want this to be, if it rains, to be drenched, and also keeps the moisture in. So you want this waterproof tarp on. You don't have to be fancy. Any tarp is good. And try to cover it as much as possible, the entire thing. If it's not the entire thing covered, you can add something in corners. You can put cardboard on the top. That's a good cover too if you don't have a tarp. The water will eventually fly off the cardboard and it will keep the moisture in. So technically that's what you want. I have some stuff coming out. Alright. To keep it tight, I have some pieces of wood laying around. I'm gonna put it in each corner so little pets don't come in. And I never have problems with rats or anything like that. But better to be safe than sorry. If you have food scraps, something like dead fish, be careful because the dogs will try to get it out. So it has to be pretty tight protected. Now, you leave it alone for 4 days. Forget about it for 4 days. Count. Today, for instance, is Tuesday. So I'm gonna go Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I have to turn it. Now what that means? That means I'm gonna take my pitchfork, uncover this, and take one scoop at a time and make another pile here. So you're gonna need 2 spaces technically for this compost to be empty. You turn it over, water it if you need it, if it needs it, and it will. In 4 days it will get dry, and you're gonna notice it's gonna get hot, which that's what you want. It's a very good thing. After 4 days, you turn it. Then every second day, you will have to turn it again. 7 times you have to do that. So one more time. After 4 days, you turn it 1 time, and then 7 more times, you're gonna have to turn it over. Every second day. If you don't stay on this schedule, it won't be done in 18 days. If you do and stay on this schedule and you have the right things in it, guarantee it's going to be done in 18 days. Now, I rarely stop in 18 days because, see, my weekends I like to be doing something else, or in the Sunday I don't want to work, so I had to add an extra day if I don't do that. So that means, rule of thumb, in about 3 weeks to 4 weeks, this should be done. Compost it 100%. After this is done, then you can use it for anything you want. And we're going to talk about other things you want to do in the garden next time. Thank you for watching.